Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, so I was starting with perspectives from the presidency. And this morning, we're joined by Ajiri Ngalale, who is the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Pleasure to be with all of you. Good morning.
Yeah, so good to have you as well. You know, of course, you know that there will be a lot of focus on the president and the presidency, especially that comment too. He seems to always harp on that, knowing that, look, there will be challenges ahead. There will be tough times ahead. We have to make hard decisions. And as much as people, well, they hear that, but they also look at what they're going through and they feel, what do we do about this? How long more should we wait? How are we going to get out of this? So just give us a perspective here. I mean, much as the president maintains this, and we know, yes, they have to go about certain things in certain ways, how is it coming on at the president? Do they understand the normalcy of how people are talking about this and what they face economically as well?
Absolutely. You know, Chamberlain, that's why His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he's always been a straight shooter. He's always been someone who would tell you exactly what to expect, prepare you for it, and then take you by the hand and walk you through it. He did it in Lagos. He's doing it again at the federal level. Let's be clear about what's going on in the country. We are acutely aware of the fact that our people are facing rising energy costs, rising food prices, stagnating wages. Wages have not gone up yet, even though we are in the process of working on that. And we know that there's extensive hardship all across this country. Everybody agrees on that point. What the president is refusing to do is to promise what he cannot deliver. He's not going to say that Nigerians will wake up tomorrow and all will be Uhuru. He's telling Nigerians exactly where we are and what he's doing to ensure that we get to the other side of this, and that when we get to the other side of it, it will be permanent. I liken His Excellency Mr. President to a surgeon who is saying that we can no longer simply put a bandage over our wounds. We actually have to go in, take the bullet out, so to speak, and that process can be painful. But the healing is permanent. And when we get to the other side of it, Nigerians would now know in retrospect that having gone through the short-term challenges associated with these very, very key and necessary economic reforms, that it was obviously the right thing to do. And that's where we are.
So what's going to be the style of the president? I mean, people told us last time out, when the former president gives you a task, he allows you to go ahead and just do it. So, but this particular time, what's the difference? Is he going to see them almost every time? Or how does he operate with them?
Nigerians can expect from the president what Lagosians are familiar with when His Excellency Mr. President was governor. And that is someone who will walk officials by the hand to ensure that he gets the result that he seeks. Ultimately, he understands that the performance of every minister, every CEO of every agency, all the government officials within the federal administration, that their performance is going to tie to his name and tie to his legacy. So he is not someone who would say, yes, I've appointed you, just go and do whatever you think is best, and I'll just hope for the best. He's someone who says, look, you've entered the chair. As you enter the chair, already on your table are set benchmarks against which I'm going to measure your performance. This is not some sort of abstract hope that somebody's going to perform. Already before this administration took office, many Nigerians may not be familiar with this, but after His Excellency Mr. President won the election, in the interim period between the time he won the election and the time he was sworn in, he had actually set up a series of reform committees across all the sectors and basically looked at exactly what His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari had achieved and said, this is what we want to do to build on these achievements. And I'm talking in specific detailed terms within these sectors, and saying, look, we're going to effectively implement a plan within a certain amount of time based on time-based benchmarks that we will now, when the ministers come in, we'll be able to measure their performance against. So every minister coming in absolutely knows what they have to achieve within the time frame that's been given to them by the president, and that's something in the history of Nigerian governance we've never seen before. So with that said, the president has set the mode, he's set the benchmarks. The question now is about enforcement And the president has shown, during his time in Lagos State as governor, that he is not someone that's afraid to fire anybody. He's not somebody that is afraid to levy quick sanctions to ensure that he gets the result that he wants. Because ultimately, if this administration fails, they will not say a minister failed or a set of ministers failed. They will say President Bola Tinubu failed, and he will not accept failure.
Interesting that you talk about firing. Do we see, is that likely to happen? Because, you know, a good number of people will reference the previous administration.
So I remember on this very stage, even though it was on a different platform, His Excellency, the former governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola, was in this chair when he stated to Nigerians that he's had the up-close working experience with both men. That is former President Muhammadu Buhari and current President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And he said it's not about selecting who is better or what is better for the country. It's about acknowledging the differences of these individuals and their personalities and their styles and what suits the times maybe more effectively. In his opinion, former President Muhammadu Buhari was someone who delegated authority a lot, trusted the officials that worked under him to just do what was in the interest of Nigerians. And some people would say that that ties back to his extensive experience in the military, where there's that sense of trust and that sense of mutual loyalty between the appointee and the appointer. And then some would say, you look at President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose background is not the military, whose background is private sector, results-driven, performance-based, kind of systemic influence on his professional upbringing, if you will. And on the basis of those two experiences, you wouldn't expect that they would handle issues the same way. So President Bola Tinubu is somebody who has the results. He says, look, these are your benchmarks. I know what I want you to achieve. I'm not expecting you to just come up with some plan when you get there. I'm telling you what I expect you to achieve. I'm telling you the time frame within which I expect you to achieve it.
So long
and if you don't, there are consequences.
So long and short, the president is likely to fire a minister.
He is ready to fire a minister at the drop of a dime if he's not getting what he wants. Okay. Absolutely.
All right. One other issue that's been in the news that everyone has been talking about is that of the number of ministers that the president has. Mm-hmm. This is the highest since the Fourth Republic began. Mm-hmm. A number of people would cite. And I'm pretty sure that a few others may be joining, in no distant future. So naturally, a bloated cabinet means bloated resources to be deployed to them to get things done. So at a time when people are asking, how are we going to reduce the cost of governance? The president is coming with this number of ministers, and the National Assembly hasn't really backed down on its own. So one is wondering exactly what is government doing about the high cost of governance, which everyone is asking. Can we bring down the cost of governance?
Interestingly, I had a conversation about this very issue just a few days ago with Mr. President. And what he said in private is what he says in public, which is that, in his view, there was an urgent need to enhance specialization within the federal government. What do I mean by that? Before now, you would recall in the first term of His Excellency former President Muhammadu Buhari, Governor Babatunde Fashola was given a portfolio that included works, housing, and power, if you recall. That's 3 different sectors on the head of one person. Everybody knows the competence and the capability of His Excellency Babatunde Fashola, but there was no doubt that that is a huge undertaking for anybody. When you talk about 3 critical sectors that each involve serious deficits that you're trying to climb out of within those sectors. So what the president said is he looked at the administration and he said, based on the level of deficit, we're talking 50 years worth of deficit. This is not any kind of negative judgment on former President Muhammadu Buhari. He did his able best to take us out to the extent that he could within his time, within the limited resources available to him. But you're talking about 50 years worth of deficit. So the president's position is that if we can enhance specialization, ensuring that we slim it down, get housing, for example, into the hands of a man like Alhaji Musa Dangiwa, whose experience reforming the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria suits well to the reform of the housing sector. And that's all he has to work with. He doesn't have to worry about works. He doesn't have to worry about power. It's all he has to face. That if we do that across the board, that the efficiency and the value of what you're going to get from each individual minister that's facing one critical assignment with a set a list of benchmarks that have been provided for them, that is in the best interest of the country. So the president says, if I'm going to put a minister in place who has a sole focus, a specific focus, there's no excuse for failure. And at that point, you can now say we can hold them accountable because each minister is overseeing a critical sector of the economy.
The question is at what cost, I think.
Right. Well, and that comes to what I mean. If you have 3 or 4 ministries on the head of one person, I'll just use the previous Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Social Development and Disaster Management, for example. You would recall under the last administration, despite its best efforts and its best intentions, there were a lot of challenges, okay, that emanated from that particular ministry with respect to implementation. It wasn't about will, it wasn't about intention, it wasn't about wanting to do the right thing or not. It was about the fact that you had this unwieldy, massive bureaucracy trying to cater to 200 million Nigerians with one individual at the top of all of that. And then you found that in the process, the implementation of the policies, the implementation of the programs were faulty. So what we're saying is that if we can be efficient in our policy execution, it would more than make up for the fact that you have 5 or 6 more ministers than previous administrations had, because we believe that the enhanced specialization coming to government is worth that increment in the amount of ministers present.
Well, let me take you up on what the president said. He said it's not, tenable that we're using 90% of our revenue to service debt, but we didn't quite hear what he intends to do because the debt is there. Right. And right now, as we speak, we're still using about 90% of our revenue to service this debt. What precisely is the president's plan? Is it to increase revenue, or he wants to find a way to reduce the debt?
Certainly, massively increasing revenue is a top-line priority on his table, but it's not a one-strike solution. There are multiple elements of how he's going to do that. One of them is ensuring that we clean up federal expenditure in such a way that we don't have the kinds of duplication that we've seen in the past when it comes to the expenditures in our ministries, departments, and agencies. The president has been very open about the fact that he's going to not only dust off the Oronsaye report, but that he's going to be the president that implements it. So yes, he's been very clear about that as well. So there is a restructure that it will be coming to the federal government that is going to deal with the issue of cost of governance. The other issue is going to be about the National Assembly, working with the National Assembly hand in hand to see how we can also bring down the level of expenditure within the National Assembly, both on the books and off the books. What I mean by off the books, without being too controversial, is that we know that there has been a history of the National Assembly injecting a lot of projects within MDAs that may not be suited to the function and roles of those MDAs. These are things that we believe we can clean up, and Mr. President is ready to do that.
Let me just brief. This is just a little. I know we're going to other issues now.
Right.
Has it come to the presidency? Because some civil servants, we understand that there's a bit of confusion as to who to report to with these new ministries that have been created. Is the presidency aware of this? What's going on with that?
I really cannot imagine a situation in which you would have a minister in a federal ministry where
the civil servants.
Yes. The civil servants would not know the line of command. It's always been established. It's been established for decades now, both civilian and military. So I'm not really sure where that report is emanating from or what it's based on.
Okay, so let's talk about ECOWAS. What is going on with this? What's Nigeria's position? I know the ECOWAS, but what is the president's thoughts about this?
Thank you very much. So, of course, our president is the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, and his position is the consensus position of ECOWAS. All of the heads of state agreeing to the common position and consensus that all options must remain on the table to ensure that there is a restoration of the constitutional order in Niger Republic. The position is that military intervention is not something that our feet are rushing into. It is not something that we are going to wake up tomorrow morning and declare, a war on a neighbor. It is something that is on the table as a means of last resort. The president has been open to the fact that this is a means of last resort and not the next step. And the president's approach is the approach of, is the consensus opinion of all ECOWAS heads of state that this must be wise, it must be thoughtful, it must be incremental, and it must be escalatory. We have seen the escalating costs on the economy of the Niger Republic. We have seen escalating costs imposed on the families and individuals that are involved in the Military Transition Council, and those costs are enormous. We are getting the back channel information from Niger Republic that the pressure we have placed on their economy and on the individuals responsible for this are such that we're beginning to see breakthroughs at the negotiation table. So we are being patient, and we're not going to let anybody insincerely buy time. But what we are saying to Nigerians is that Mr. President is determined to ensure that nothing gets in the way of the successful implementation of his domestic economic reform program. That is priority number one. It continues to be, and anything that would get in the way of that is not something that he would want to do. But what he's also saying is that our nation is not a cowardly one. Our region is not a cowardly one, and we will take whatever decision needs to be taken to defend freedom in our region and in our country.
Could that be part of why President Biden wants to see him?
Well, I think President Biden, and this is interesting because the invitation we received from the special envoy from U.S. President Joe Biden is actually an exclusive invitation. They made it very clear to us that Mr. President is the only African leader that has been invited to meet the U.S. President. And the reason why is not just Niger. That's part of it, of course. It's also part of the fact that President Bola Tinubu has taken a frontline stance that the World Bank and other Bretton Woods institutions, other U.S. government-backed development finance institutions, they need swift reforms to be able to meet the immediate needs of developing democracies, including ones like very important ones like Nigeria, in terms of large-scale industrial investment in Nigeria, large-scale infrastructure investment in Nigeria. These are the conversations that will be had between the two presidents later in September.
All right, let's go to Lagos with Buki.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Let me start from the rear. Mr. Ngilali, on the ECOWAS position, i.e. Nigeria's position in Niger. You have said that Nigeria's position is one with ECOWAS's position. But videos have come in, particularly over the weekend, about the implications of the sanctions. We have seen either it's on the Benin Republic border, trucks and trucks, long line of trucks of businesses of West Africans who are murdered there. Some of them have run out of money. They have run out of supplies, but because of those sanctions imposed on Niger, they cannot continue with their businesses. And Nigeria is also bordered, with Niger in 7 states, nothing less than 7 states. We also hear that, trucks of Nigerian businessmen are murdered at the border. With some of them, their supplies, perishables, have become rotten. I wonder if these videos have come to the notice of the president, and how concerned is he about them?
I have not had a conversation within the last 24 hours with the president on this, whether or not he's seen the video. But what I can say authoritatively is that His Excellency, Mr. President, is very much concerned about the need to uphold the humanitarian obligations of not just the Nigerian state, but that of ECOWAS as well. Conversations are ongoing to ensure that the activities that would be hurting, ordinary citizens of Niger Republic are minimized to the greatest extent possible with respect to the application of sanctions. We've been very clear in our position, not just as ECOWAS, but as a nation, that we are not in conflict in any way with the great people and citizenry of Niger Republic. This is a conflict with a narrow group of a handful of individuals who essentially have forcefully taken power and taken a democratically elected president of a country hostage with his family to secure power for themselves. So we are delineating between the people of Niger Republic and the Military Transition Council of Niger Republic, and we are saying that we are going to ratchet up to the needed extent possible those sanctions that are being applied to the military council, but in a way that would at least minimize the impact on the citizenry of Niger Republic. And those are constant conversations that are going on.
Well, it would seem like those sanctions are also hurting the West African neighbors as well, whether it's Nigeria or other countries in West Africa. You talked about how the invitation from the special envoy suggests that President Tinubu is the only one that, President Joe Biden wants to have a conversation with. But we've also seen in the past, particularly days after the coup in Niger, we heard that President Tinubu had a conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris as well on the situation in Niger. Suggests that he's been asked to do something about it. Is the president under some form of pressure, to particularly, dance to the tunes of Western powers on the situation in Niger Republic?
This is really one of, I think, the unfortunate post-colonial narratives that begins to gain traction. The notion that an independent, sovereign African nation cannot have elected a president who can take an independent decision concerning the affairs of that nation and that region. Let's be clear, and I'm saying this on national television, that the consultations that took place between President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and previously Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as U.S. President Joe Biden, as well as Secretary of State Tony Blinken, as well as heads of state across Europe, across the Middle East, across Northern Africa, the notion that they are special or that they have not been part of a wider consultation with heads of state around the world, I think is false. It's just fiction. He has been having these conversations with heads of state around the world. He has been at the forefront of building and gathering consensus amongst heads of state around the world as it relates to what needs to be done in response to the activities of the military council in Niger Republic. That's number one. Number two, the fact that we have taken a position as sub-region. I'm talking about ECOWAS now. You mentioned that there's been negative impact on economies in West Africa outside of Niger Republic. It's worth noting that even the Benin Republic that you mentioned, their president is very much on board with our sanctions. They're very much on board. These sanctions are being applied on the basis of an ECOWAS consensus. All of these sanctions are being agreed upon by all ECOWAS member states that have signed on to that consensus. So everybody is on board with that in terms of the West African sub-region. But our focus is making sure that we continue to build consensus behind our position so that we are operating from a position of strength rather than a position of weakness with respect to the defense of freedom on our continent.
All right, I know we have to wind down, but could you tell us, why has former CBN governor not been released?
Well, I think if at last count, there are some new charges that have been filed and prepared. The former governor, or the suspended governor, rather, of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has those charges to answer. And we believe that the judicial process will play itself out. What we want to ensure does not happen is we want to avoid this tendency toward sensationalism with these kinds of sensitive matters. What I mean by that is, on the one hand, many Nigerians say, look, we want our institutions to work. We want investigations to play themselves out. We want to ensure that we get to the conclusive end to these investigative and prosecutorial processes. On the other hand, sometimes there are segments of the media that would suggest that, no, there should be some sort of an intervention, that the man should be more important than the institution, that the president should just step in and by fiat release somebody who's going through a legal due process. We believe that the rule of law is paramount. We believe that the legal process should play out, and we are asking for the patience of all observers in allowing that process to play out unhindered by any man or any group of persons being sponsored in any segment of the media.
But I know you must have also heard that before these recent charges were brought up, we had former senior lawyers, Mr. Falana, you had Mr. Bakar, several persons thought that there was a bit of vendetta in his own case.
Well, it's only natural for commentators to speculate, right? Speculation is, it doesn't require anything to speculate. It doesn't require any credible information. It doesn't require anything other than the ability to speak. So there's going to be speculation. Our focus is not on speculation. Our focus are on the facts of the issue. The fact is there has been a set of charges prepared. They have been filed before a court of competent jurisdiction. That process has to play out. And the notion of reading, kind of the sensational ideas of vendetta or payback or retribution into a situation where you have black and white facts on paper about the illicit movement of money from accounts of the Central Bank of Nigeria into private accounts without due process. That's me not trying to preempt the judicial process, but me giving you an insight, a little bit of insight into the charges that have been filed. The notion that you have all of those facts in black and white on paper with account numbers and individuals involved, that is somehow vendetta when we have the facts on paper, I think most Nigerians would see that as ridiculous.
Are other charges to come?
I think I should not preempt the ongoing investigation, but I think Nigerians do understand that there has been an independent external auditor appointed to investigate the Central Bank of Nigeria, and that process has not yet concluded, which may mean that it's reasonable to suspect that more may be known soon.
All right. So for those who say, well, Mr. Ngalale, we heard your last government. You spoke, very fervently about the government, and you defended the policies at the time.
Absolutely.
And then now they wonder, do you feel that something might have been off? Because looking at the policies now and the effects of last government, they thought, do you have any, perhaps you might have missed a point or two in terms of the economic policies?
Chamberlain, this is probably the best question I've been asked since I started this job. First of all, let me say this. I defended the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari with my whole chest and with all my ability, because I believed in what I was doing, and I'll tell you why. Government, the federal government of Nigeria is a large operation. I liken it to a cruise ship. As the conductor or the driver, you turn the steering wheel, and it's several minutes before the ship actually begins to turn. There are a lot of individuals involved in the federal administration, and it only takes a handful of people to give the entire operation a very bad name. We had the misfortune under the Buhari administration of having one or two very strategic individuals who turned out to be either grossly incompetent or wickedly corrupt, or both. Now, Nigerians are finding out who those individuals are and what they actually did. That does not take away from the fact that former President Muhammadu Buhari built 5 new international airports in 8 years when governments over the previous 40 could not do so. That does not take away from the fact that he put in place 3 new high-speed rail lines across the nation in a way that had not been done in the preceding 40 years. That does not take away from the fact that he put in place the first new seaport in 40 years, or that he constructed the second Niger bridge, or the reconstruction of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, or the construction of Boni Bodo Road. I can go on and on about his achievements and the fact that he established social investment programs at a scale of affecting millions of Nigerians positively, or end power, conditional cash transfer, and many others. The point here is that he achieved a lot. And we are saying that the bad work or the incompetence or corruption of a few bad eggs in that government will never tarnish the fact that he was the most productive president in our history with respect to the provision of infrastructure and the establishment of social investment that affected Nigerians at the base of the economic ladder. And I'm always going to be proud of his legacy. But that does not now mean that we will not be able to point out those areas in this administration where better work could have been done in places like the CBN, in places like the Attorney General's office, and many others where we felt that there were opportunities to have done better over the course of the last several years.
Doesn't that also raise the question? I mean, Chimele was asking you about Mr. Emefiele the other time.
Right.
Well, that process is ongoing. Mm-hmm. But when is the process with Mr. Bawa, former suspended chairman of the FCC, going to start?
Well, I believe that process has already started. It's a sticky and sensitive situation. When you're talking about institutions like the DSS, the EFCC, where you are dealing with the individuals who are holding top secret, topmost national secrets, you cannot treat all cases the same way. Yes, the legal process is the same. I'm not saying that there's selectivity or anything like that. What I'm saying is that certain individuals have access to higher classifications of sensitive information. And on the basis of that, that will certainly impact the way that you house, for example, this individual versus somebody who did not have access to top-level classifications, because you're dealing with the ability to transmit information between individuals while they're being detained as the legal process is playing out. So,
but
yes.
The legal process hasn't started. That's the issue. That's it.
But this is the point. When somebody is under an investigation, this is normal anywhere in the world. If you go even to the United States, you don't have a situation where you only take somebody to court on day one before you start an investigation. Investigations take, they go to an advanced level before it hits the court. We are at an advanced level of our investigation, and it's going to get to the court. What we are also ensuring, though, is that you do not have flight risk, that you don't have a situation where somebody with top secret information and someone who may have done a particular extent of harm is in a position where they can simply go away scot-free.
All right, we'll have another opportunity. I mean, I see lots of people wanted to find out several things from you, but not to worry. Right. We'll try and get another opportunity so that we could get a lot more questions from those of you who want to know a thing or two. Thank you for coming on. Aide Ngilale, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity.